Breaking tonight, another Republican senator who voted to convict President Trump facing backlash at home.
Our Constitution and our country is more important than any one person. I voted to convict President Trump because he is guilty.
And for that, the executive committee of the Louisiana GOP unanimously voted to censure Senator Bill Cassidy, one of 7 Republicans who voted to convict President Trump on a single charge of incitement of insurrection.
Mr. Cassidy, guilty.
In voting to censure another Republican senator, Pat Toomey, the Pennsylvania GOP said the trial, quote, served only to divert attention from the Biden administration's radical agenda and shared the disappointment of many Pennsylvania grassroots leaders and volunteers over Senator Toomey's vote. Cassidy runs for re-election in 6 years. Toomey is retiring, as is North Carolina Senator Richard Burr, also facing a censure vote in his home state after his vote to convict.
By far, the majority of Republicans across the country and in the Congress are standing by Donald Trump. These folks are in a boat together. They understand they went against the grain of their party. They may be facing very tough primaries upcoming.
A former Burr staffer sees an alarming trend after 15,000 registered North Carolina Republicans switched their votes to unaffiliated after the January 6th riot.
Republicans, as they may get a little more Trumpy, but they're getting smaller. And if your goal is to win elections, which may be an open debate sometimes with Republicans. If your goal is to win elections, you want more voters, not less, and your actions are turning them off.
Other North Carolina political experts actually see the Republican switchers possibly reacting to the second impeachment trial, which may have been the final straw for those voters. Having the opportunity to switch to a seemingly nonpartisan, unaffiliated status could be a rebuke to the party in the guise of, I've had enough. Former Republican House Speaker Newt Gingrich thinks the party will coalesce around a Trumpist GOP eventually.
Trump's greatest ally is Joe Biden, and every time Biden does something that is destructive, it further reminds the Trump voters why it's unacceptable to allow the Washington politicians to dictate to the rest of us.
Now tonight, the North Carolina GOP has voted to censure Senator Richard Burr over his impeachment vote to convict. So let's bring in North Carolina Republican Party Chairman Michael Whatley. Welcome. Good to have you, sir.
It's great to be on with you, Shannon. Thank you.
Okay, so tell us what you hope to accomplish, because a lot of people look right now and see a very divided GOP. A number of these senators who say they voted their conscience, they voted the way they thought the Constitution led them, are now being censured at home.
Well, I'll tell you this. We do not have a divided GOP in North Carolina at all. In fact, over the course of the last 3 days, I've talked with hundreds of party leaders and activists all across the state who expressed their disappointment with the House for moving forward with this impeachment, even though it was unconstitutional. Certainly expressed displeasure with the Senate for moving forward with the trial. And we're very glad that the president has been exonerated and acquitted in this trial. But we're not divided as a party at all.
Okay, let me read something from the Wall Street Journal editorial board cautioning the GOP against continuing down the path, they say, with President Trump, and then get your response. They say this: he may go on a revenge campaign tour or run as a third-party candidate, but all he will accomplish is to divide the center-right and elect Democrats. The GOP's defeats in the 2 January 5th Georgia Senate races proved that. The country's moving past the Trump presidency, and the GOP will remain in the wilderness until it does too. How do you respond to those critics?
I completely agree. The fact that the president brought together the biggest coalition in North Carolina history. In fact, we had 82% Republican turnout. We delivered 2.75 million votes for the president, the most that we've ever delivered for any candidate here in North Carolina. We need that brand. We need the America First agenda to move forward. We expect that we will have candidates who are going to embrace the America First agenda. Could not agree more with Speaker Gingrich on your lead-in that Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are going to do more to unite the Republicans than divide us.
Well, and we saw today the president down in South Florida, a number of his supporters gathered, waving their flags and their Trump flags and waving at him. He says there is more to come, that he is not done yet. What do you think that means?
Well, I think, look, the president plans to be a force in the Republican Party, and it's great that he is going to be working throughout the Republican Party rather than setting up a third party. But when you look at the voters that he brought to the party, you look at the votes that he brought to the polls, that translated up and down the ballot in North Carolina. We had a fantastic election cycle, whether it was judicial races or county commission races, congressional races, legislative races, across the board. He brought votes that translated into wins all up and down the ticket for us.
Very quickly, do you think January 6th, though, changed the calculus? Because that's weeks after the success you had there on the general election.
Well, look, I think that everybody needs to stop and take a hard look at January 6th. It was an awful day, and we saw a lot of awful actions that took place. But at the same time, we need to be focused on the American agenda, the issues that we have, like families who can't put their kids in school, people who can't work. We need an economy to be jump-started. And rather than focusing on a very divisive partisan agenda and an impeachment process that really has served to divide the country, we need to unity. We need to move forward, and we need to be focused on the American families.
North Carolina GOP Chair Michael Whatley, thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you, Shannon.